Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedacca, and you're listening to Going Solo Network, WGSN-DB, and the show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. And as many of you know, this is International Child-Centered Divorce Month, as we commemorate every January. And to commemorate this important month, I have a very special guest with me who's talking about a program that I am extremely impressed with, and I think you will be as well. So I want to introduce you to Dr. Irwin Sandler, and he is a research professor at the Reach Institute at Arizona State University. He's the developer, along with Dr. Charlene Wolchik, of the online eNew Beginnings program, which has demonstrated in vigorous research remarkable positive impact to reduce interparental conflict, strengthen parent-child relations, and improve outcomes for children following divorce. As you know, I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and those are very, very important functions that we are always looking for to help parents before, during, and even after divorce, especially reducing that conflict. So I'm thrilled to be learning about this program, sharing it with you, and sharing this interview with Dr. Sandler. Dr. Sandler, welcome. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you, Rosalind, and thank you for inviting me to talk to your group.
Yes, this is an important topic. And what is so significant about it is that it's very much research-based, and you can't always say that about everything that's available. So let's start by asking you about the background on how you and your colleagues developed the eNew Beginnings program and the research behind it.
Thank you, Rosalind. Yeah, I love talking about that. It's really the result of about 30 years of research. So it's been a long haul. We started with an in-person program, Charlene and I and our other colleagues. And that program focused on targeted, can we change the factors that really make a difference in the lives of children following their parents' divorce and the lives of the parents? Now, at that time, if you go back 30 years, if you will, we didn't really know that we could make a difference. We knew there were a lot of people trying their best to do good things, but we didn't know from hard-nosed research whether it mattered, whether it actually changed lives. So we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the National Institute of Mental Health and then the National Institute of Drug Abuse to test it. So the program is called the New Beginnings Program, and it started out as an in-person group program. And it was a 10-session program. And in each session, we taught each of the skills we thought would make a difference. And what we targeted specifically were the two factors that all the prior research had found were associated with better outcomes for children following divorce. And those were the quality of their family life, of their relationships with their parents following the divorce, in the years following the divorce, and two, the level of interparental conflict. So that's what the program targeted. And later on in our talk, I'll go into more depth about what we do there. We did 3 randomized trials. Now, randomized trials, as you probably know, is kind of the gold standard by which we evaluate programs. And all of them had positive effects, showed indeed we were on the right track. The most impressive was the work we did to follow up the families. Now, we were successful in following them up to 15 years later.
Really?
Yeah. And we had very good retention of the families, 80 to 90%. And what we found was, one, the program had a very consistent positive effect to strengthen the relationship between the parents and the children. And this is true for fathers as well as mothers. Mm-hmm. Two, that the program affects to change the children's lives were rather remarkable. We saw early on that there was a change, a positive change in children's mental health problems. Then 6 years later, we found that the effects actually grew over time. That's remarkable, and it's a remarkable testament to the parents. The effects grew over time, so now we are preventing children meeting criterion for mental disorder and substance abuse problems and high-risk sexual behavior, and also improving academic outcomes. 15 years later, the effects were equally strong, including a significant decrease in what's called internalizing problems or depression 15 years later, when they're now young adults, which is remarkable. Also, we did a cost-benefit analysis and found significant savings to society of almost $1,000 for each parent that went through it. So we were very excited about that. But the question was, can you really get this out to the public? And an in-person program requires a lot of training and a lot of maintenance on the part of providers, and it's expensive. We estimated that it costs about $600 to $700 per family. Divorced families, money is a problem. So we took one more step. We said, can we put this program online? Can you teach the same parenting and conflict reduction skills online? So we developed the eNew Beginnings program, the online New Beginnings program. We did another randomized trial to evaluate those effects. And actually, the effects were a little bit stronger for the online program than they were for the in-person program.
That's so.
We weren't able to do the long-term follow-up, but the immediate benefits in the online program was a reduction in interparental conflict, reported both by the parents and the children. And the children weren't even in the program, but they saw their parents fighting less, and a strengthening of parenting. Parent-child relationships improved, and a reduction in child mental health problems. So in a nutshell, we're very excited about now trying to make the program available to parents, because now it's if it's online now, it's a very affordable program. So thank you for the opportunity to tell people about it, and be glad to get into the details on exactly what we do teach, what's involved in the program.
Yes, and that's what we want to talk about. I interview many people over the years who have courses and programs that they're excited about. So I was wondering if you could clarify for me what makes this different from other things that are out on the market, and why is what you're doing working better?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we actually slaved over trying to construct a program that was in fact different. And there's a couple of things that make it different, or that we think make it successful. One is the program is highly interactive. It's really personalized. And I'll go into what I mean by that it focuses on teaching very practical, I don't want to say simple, because they sound simple, but they're not easy to do. Skills parents can use to strengthen family life, essentially, as a single parent, and to reduce conflict. So we focus very much not on, this is what you ought to do and lecturing at people, but on practical skills that they can put to use as they do the program. Second is, we call it dripping the program. They can't blast through the whole program in one shot. That doesn't work.
Yes.
You can have all the prettiest graphics you want. It doesn't work. What does work is what the parents do to use the skills. And that's where our focus was. So they get one session or one unit a week. Each unit's about 30 minutes. They learn a skill, and then they get home practice. See,
Mhm.
now you learn that. Now do it with your children. Come back and tell us how it went. And the next unit starts with, how did it go? Um, and if they say, it went great, it went good, then we say, congratulations, keep it up, etc. They're all flying. And you see it when you do it in person. You see a lot, half the parents come back and say, that was really great. Online, you don't get to see that, but they rate it. But if they say it's just okay, or not so good, or awful, they rate it that way. You say, we validate, you always validate what the parents' experiences.
Mhm.
Validate it and say, yeah, it's hard to get started on good listening or positive activities in the family. What made it hard for you? They check off, they get a whole bunch of options, and almost all of them are the typical things that make it hard. And they said, oh, yeah, you didn't have time to do it. That's a big problem for a lot of divorced families because you're so busy. Here are some solutions that other parents have found helpful. Pick the one that works for you. They pick it, and then they say, yeah, that works for a lot of families. And they, can you do that the next week? They say yes. And then we send them and they say, would you like us to send you an email that reminds you to do it next week? And they get an email that said, oh, I said that I would set aside Sunday afternoon, blah, blah, blah. So you see, it's very much attuned to parents' own experience.
I love that. I love that. And I love that it's interactive. And I love that you're, even though it's an online program, you're having a dialogue, a communication with them, feeling and what their experiences are. No one is made wrong for not
Absolutely.
getting it perfect.
Absolutely. No one gets it perfect. Parenting is hard work.
You're not kidding.
I know, I've been there. Not divorced, but I've been there. It's hard work.
So tell me about what really stood out for me is this the function about reducing parental conflict, because as we well know, after divorce, co-parenting can really be challenging, especially for some families. And a lot of people don't understand conflict resolution strategies, and they don't make them work. So what are you doing to help people overcome that barrier?
Absolutely. Well, we dig through the literature a lot to try and who's developed something that works to reduce conflict. And we found very few people actually have. Um, One of them happens to be our colleague, a fellow named Sandy Braver. He developed something called the Dads for Life program. We borrowed from him. Um, but then we thought, well, what works? Um, and we took a lot from really common sense and what might be called the cognitive behavioral literature. And that is, we give the parents practical skills. One, to anticipate problems, conflict. Parents can anticipate the hot spots, often
Mm-hmm.
around the exchange, or um, it could be on the phone, but you sort of know when these things are going to happen. Um, so we give them a tool to anticipate it. Um, and the first step is, because these get to be very emotional situations. So to change the parent's set, their intent, say going into this situation, when let's say we're going to exchange the children, move from one household to the other. I know this is a tricky situation. My intent here is not to win, not to show her that she's wrong or him that he's wrong, because they're separate programs for moms and dads. They're the same, but they speak to moms and dads.
Mm-hmm.
But my intent is to protect my children. No matter what happens here, that's my goal. Um, so I'm going to have what we call a protective stand. And we even give them a shield. It's a graphic of a shield to protect your children. And the first step is a protective stand. My intent is I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to let this get into a conflict. The second is I'm going to control myself. I'm going to use what we call self-talk. I'm going to tell myself, okay, coming up to her house, I'm coming up to his house, or we're get to the school. I know what to do. I know she may or he may be push my buttons, but I'm going to protective stand. I'm going to not let it get out of hand.
Mhm.
Then there's protective words when you're in the interaction. And let's say your partner or ex-partner says something that you know they're going to say. That usually you would have to have a comeback. No, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. Protect yourself, win. Not let her or him push you around. But instead say, okay, we're not going to talk about it now in front of the children. That's our first thing, is we're not going to do any conflict over the children. Let's set a time to talk about this. Then we give them, and then afterwards, you don't you do your best to just keep that protective stand going. And then afterwards, when the situation's over, you walk away and you reinforce yourself. You say, I did a good job. That didn't blow up. That usually blows up. And there were no snide remarks. Um, and that's great. And you congratulate yourself. Great. I'm going to go get an ice cream cone. you know, that's great. Um, so now that's not enough. Then from Dr. Braver's Dads for Life program, we borrowed turning down the heat, and that is in the interaction. Listen. Don't feel like you have to win. You have to start by listening. It may be painful. You may not like what you're hearing, but
Yes.
listen. Um, and respond that you acknowledge, that he or she is angry about this and she feels hurt, or she doesn't trust you. Yeah, I understand. We've got a rocky past. Um, but I feel it's important that we co-parent, like a business, like a business partner that you don't particularly get along with. You're not married to them, but you both have a common goal, and both our common goal is our kids. So anyway, each of these we teach, and then we model. We show what it looks like to do it. Uh, and then they go home and they practice it, and then they do the home practice, and then how did it go? And what came up that might be a problem? Then how do we problem solve it?
This
So
is
those,
this is a wonderful approach. It's not rocket science, but it's amazing how it takes people step by step, and you're making agreements, and you're understanding too that you can't change your partner. The only one you could change in this equation is yourself, your approach, your attitude. And when you do that, it's more likely that your partner is going to be less defensive, less aggressive, and hopefully you're going to start teaching them how to treat you and to treat each other. So it's a win-win all around.
right. And your motivation for this is you're protecting the children.
Exactly.
Your motivation
Exactly.
is not, sometimes the motivation is to get even, to show her that she's wrong or that he's wrong,
That
to
never works.
it never
That
works.
never works. We
Never.
don't have a lot of time left, so I want to
Okay.
make sure, Dr. Sandler, that I ask you how people can get this and exactly what the pricing is, and what is, how many weeks or episodes there are as part of the structure of it.
I got you. Yeah, we have two versions of it. One is if you're just doing it for yourself, it's not for a court order, you're just doing it for yourself, then it's 10 units. The price is $69. And for that, you basically get the whole program, and you get to take it home. There are tip sheets and there are the videos and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, if you're just doing it because you want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
you're not being forced, but you're protecting your children. and you're protecting your relationship with your children. And that's such a source of stress for a lot of divorced parents that, they really want their kids to do well. And they really want that relationship.
Of course.
Okay. Uh, Now, for some families, they're mandated by the court to take some parent education class, and that differs by state and by county. And you would need to check with the court, with your court, if you're mandated to take it while you're going through divorce, whether this program will satisfy, because some courts have a list, but they will recognize other programs. Just ask them, here's this program, will it satisfy my requirement? And in that case, it's only 6 sessions because the courts don't want to wait that long, frankly. It's basically the same material, but more compacted. And it's only $49.
Wow.
And
Certainly a bargain.
well, it gets even better if you're indigent, and the courts will have a way to certify that you can't afford it because they have other services that they allow no payment. We will honor that. If the court certifies that you can't pay because you don't have the money, then you tell us that and you'll get it for free.
Wow. That's very impressive.
But
And
for most people, it'll be $49.
and that certainly is quite a bargain for what you're getting, listening to the scope of the work that went into it and the understanding behind it all and the research. It's something that every divorcing family should really have access to, because it's going to make a difference in one and hopefully in both of those parents as they move through the process and long after the process, because it gives them life skills that they could use forevermore. So in the brief time we have left, Dr. Sandler, give me your takeaway points. What do you want our listeners to remember about the value of what you're giving in New Beginnings, and what they need to remember when they're going through this really life-challenging situation of divorce or breakup?
Certainly. Thank you. My takeaways, I don't want to sound over simplistic because I know it's difficult. So maybe that's my first takeaway. I know it's difficult. I know it's very stressful for children as well as their parents. It's probably the hardest thing you're going to ever have to do in your life. The second is there are practical tools. There are skills. The parents call them tools that you can do it. You can learn, you can put into practice that are really going to make a difference in the goals that you have. And your goals to have a stronger bond with your children that lasts a lifetime. And although this may seem impossible, but it is possible if you use the skills to de-escalate the conflict, to plan ahead so that the conflict doesn't get out of hand. There are specific things you can do, and that's what the program's all about, teaching these skills in a way that is easily digestible, trying them. And the program really works you through. We know it's not going to be, roses the first time. We know it takes work. And that's why there's all the support for doing that. So you can do it. I'll quote one of our parents, actually. One of our parents who we love forever says, the program didn't teach me anything I didn't know already. I sort of knew about building relationships. I sort of knew how I was ticking him off. But I wasn't doing it, you know.
Yeah.
Program gave me a step-by-step way to do what I really knew I needed to do for my children, for myself, frankly. This is almost a quote. It's not exactly, but it's pretty much a quote from one of our parents.
That's fantastic. And where can people go to find this program?
Yeah, it's they go to our website, um, and maybe you can put in the chat, or if there is a chat, or on your link, divorceandparenting.com. And that's our website. And then you click on for parents, and it'll show you how you can get either the 6 session. 6 session is only really if you're mandated by the courts, because it has things that the courts want to show that you've done it. The 10 session, I would recommend if you're doing it just for yourself. It's longer, but each session is only about a half hour. And it's a little bit more money, but not that much, honestly. So the 10 session, if you're doing it for yourself, 6 sessions if you're doing it for the court.
Fabulous. Divorceandparenting.com. It's very simple
Very simple.
to remember, and a very important website to remember so that you could access this information.
And they could also link onto Charlene's LinkedIn if they want to, see what she's saying about it, because she's very active on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes. I want to remind our listeners that you are listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca, and that January is International Child-Centered Divorce Month. And we are very proud to be supporting Dr. Sandler's program, eNew Beginnings, on our special website that we put out every January to commemorate Child-Centered Divorce Month. So if you go to divorced with an ED, divorcedparentsupport.com/free gifts, and just enter your email address, you will get to the website where we have free digital gifts for everyone around the world to take advantage of before, during, and long after divorce. It's designed to help people get through the divorce experience in the best possible way when you're a parent, because we all know how complex it is, and we all want to protect and show our children the most love and support possible when they're going through a divorce experience. So that's what's happening during the month of January. divorcedparentsupport.com/free gifts. And I hope everyone takes advantage of joining us there. And I want to thank Dr. Sandler for his wonderful overview of the value of the eNew Beginnings program, because it sounds like it was really put together with the well-being of parents in mind. And there's nothing more important than that, understanding the challenges you're facing at this time, and then having clear guidance and steps to take one by one to make life easier and to address the new beginnings after divorce in the most conscious and the most mindful way possible, always with the well-being of your children at heart.
Right.
So thank you, Dr. Sandler. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to, and thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
And we hope you'll join us again next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.